Well, good afternoon, young scholars. Bringing you a quiz review for Algebra 2, our very first quiz. Okay, I forgot the key word on this solving equations review worksheet, but this is in fact a review, so hopefully that wasn't confusing to get started, but your quiz will be on Google Forms and it will be posted at some point tomorrow, all right? So you'll have about a day to get it done. It'll be due on Friday, all right? So, but it's gonna be similar questions to what we've been doing the past couple weeks to start the school year. So I just wanted to go through the first four on this review, all right? Because these were the tougher ones in my opinion. So just starting off right from the top here at number one, first step, if you look at your notes, is to, whenever you see parentheses, right, look to distribute. So we're going to still draw our arrows here to keep our work organized. I'm going to bring down the 2x minus 7 on the left-hand side equals 6. And now I got to distribute this negative 3 to whatever's inside the parentheses. So in this case, negative 3x minus 3. Just be careful with your negative signs, all right? From here, well, this is a good example because now it would be combined like terms for that second step, all right? So whenever you have multiple terms that can be combined on one side, we want to take care of those. And if these are really simple equations for you to solve, then that's really great. You're off to a good start. In Algebra 2, perhaps you remember a lot from Algebra 1. Maybe you had a really good teacher. So anyway, once we combine these, you have 3 minus 3x, and now we're going to move the variables to one side. All right, we're going to simplify by moving, I'm going to take negative 3x and add that to both sides. And then if we can handle two steps in one, I'm going to add 7 over here on both sides as well. That way I'm going to keep my coefficient positive here. 5x equals 10. And now we're down to one step. Divide by 5, x equals positive 2. All right, you can always plug that back into the original, make sure it works out, which it will. All right, in this case, you should, if you plug it back in, you get negative 3 equals negative 3. So we know that's correct. All right, so like I was saying, these just are a foundation of Algebra 2, and the equations do get a bit more complicated as the year goes on. So it's good to really have a strong foundation and, you know, bank some good grades here on the first couple of quizzes, all right? So the second one here, I see a bunch of fractions. Don't fear, okay? Fractions are your friends. But we will try to eliminate them to make this problem a bit more manageable. So I look at the 2, the 4, and the 8. And technically, this is over 1, all right? So I'm trying to think, what's the smallest number that 2, 4, and 8 all go into evenly? So, and that number was looking right at us here. It's the 8, all right? 2 goes into 8, 4 goes into 8, 8 goes into 8, and obviously 1 goes into 8, all right? So that's going to be our least common denominator. So you can put parentheses if you want. We are multiplying both sides by 8. All right, so here is when you can either use a calculator or maybe try some cross-canceling. 2 goes into 8 4 times, so we're going to have a 4x. Here we got 4 going into 8 twice. Okay, so you can actually cross those off if you want to simplify. And then 2 times 3, all right, to get a 6. Or like we talked about in class today, 3/4 of a pie. If you have a pizza pie cut into 8 slices, 3/4 of that, well, you would have had 6 slices, all right? So fractions are less intimidating when you think of pizza. And here we go on the right-hand side. 8 goes into 8 one time, so it cancels out. We're just left with the 5x minus 16. From here, we can rock and roll. Let's add 16 in this case and subtract 4x. And that's going to get us 22 equals x. We are done. X equals 22, all right? So moving on here, feel free to, you know, fast forward this video or rewind if you want to see something done again. Moving too quick, all right? When we have a proportion here, a fraction set equal to another fraction, our strategy is cross multiply, all right? So I'm going to cross multiply here and set up my distributive property. So 4 times x plus 4 equals 3 times the quantity negative 2x minus 8. From here, it's basically like the first problem, okay, except we have distributive property on both sides. So be careful with that. And from here, 4x plus 16 equals negative 6x minus 24. All right. I would add 6x to both sides. Subtract 16. That's going to get me 10x equals negative 40. Divide by 10. And we get x equals negative 4. Final answer. You can plug that back in and double check yourself. You should get 0 equals 0, so you know once again that is correct. Okay, so fractions are all pretty much taken care of. For this literal equation here, number 4, a couple options here. We're trying to solve for a. All right, so don't let the multiple variables throw you off. Just follow your normal solving equation steps. And since I don't want to distribute this 1/2 here to create double fractions, I'm just going to eliminate it by multiplying both sides by 2. All right, because when you divide by a fraction, it's the same as multiplying by its reciprocal. So that way it's eliminated. We're left with 3a minus 7b equals negative 8b. And 2 steps away here, I would add 7b to both sides. And since we can actually combine these like terms, we end up with 3a equals negative 1b, or just negative b. Final step to isolate a. Undo the multiplication with division. So we divide by 3, and a equals negative b over 3. Or you can write it as negative 1/3 b, if you want to separate and pull that fraction out front. All right, either way, that would be acceptable. And that's 1 through 4 on the review, all right, for the front. I think those are the tougher ones, in my opinion. If you were able to handle all 4 of those, you're in great shape for this quiz. All right, on the back, it's just mainly 2-step equations. There are still some fractions. The only thing I would note here and watch out for is if you want to multiply first here, make sure in the case of number 2 here, you multiply everything by 4. So if I wanted to do this, I would multiply each side and every term by 4. That way I'd get m plus, once these canceled out, but then I'd have to do 4 times 8. So m plus 32 equals 40. Now you can subtract 32 and you'll get m equals 8. All right, now if you just subtracted 8 from the first step, that would be much easier in my opinion. You would have m over 4 equals 2. All right, you'd have m over 4 equals 2, and then you could just multiply by 4 to get m equals 8. All right, so either way you get to the answer, but I would recommend first adding or subtracting depending on the problem, and then multiplying or dividing. I think those, that's an easier method here with these 2-step equations, all right? And of course it's Wednesday, we got to do some word problems here. All right, so be expecting at least 1 word problem on your quiz as well. Okay, most likely 2 here. We'll go daily double. For this first one, shout out to any waitresses or waiters out there. So serving in a restaurant, Michelle earns $4 per hour and $65 in tips for a total of $93 on a weekend night. We are trying to figure out how many hours she worked, so that's our variable. Let's call x the number of hours. All right, and then we're going to set up an equation from here. You might be able to just solve this by guess and check in your head, but if we're going to set up an equation, we know she earns $4 per hour, so I'm going to set up 4x, but we don't know how many hours she worked. That's our variable. Okay, but she gets $65 in tips, so we know that, and it equaled a total of 93 for the night. So from here, we have a 2-step equation, and it's pretty easy to solve. Subtract. All right, so we're going to get 4x equals 28, and then we can divide to get a final answer of 7 hours. All right, so that would be how many hours Michelle worked on that weekend night. And then you can plug it back in and make sure that it works out, which it does, okay? The last one here, I'll get you started with an equation. Ken spent half the money on a new game. So on Monday, he had an original amount, which is what we'll call X here. Okay, so it's the original amount of money. And then he spent half of it. So in other ways, to represent that, we could divide it by 2. His original money was divided by 2 or multiplied by 1/2. Okay, but then he earned $12 mowing lawns, so we're going to add that, okay, for a grand total of now $32. So from here, I think you can solve that just like you did up top. Okay, so figure out how much money Ken had originally before he bought the game on Monday. All right, so that's it. I will post a key to this, okay, as it's due at 3 p.m. today. So at some point, I will post an answer key, and you can check all your work and help study for the quiz. And I'll also post the answer key to last week's homework, which I don't think I posted yet. All right, so my apologies on that, but you'll have a couple answer keys coming your way to help you study and watch these videos as many times as it takes. Hop into a Google Meet tomorrow. All right, and that should help you with the quiz. And P.S. For those of you taking the quiz at home, whether you take that tomorrow or Friday, just realize you can use a calculator, as you can see behind me. If you need that calculator app, feel free to download that. Calculate 84 is a good one. I don't think you'll need a graphing calculator, probably just maybe a little 4-function scientific calculator would do the trick for the quiz. Honestly, you won't even need one, so feel free to just use scrap paper. Challenge yourself to not look at your notes, okay? I'm not enforcing you to film yourself while you take the quiz. I'm gonna trust you using the honor policy right now, so just challenge yourself to use scrap paper. It is on Google Forms, and most of them will be fill-in answers, so you won't have too many multiple choice. Mostly you'll have to type in the answer, okay? So just numbers only. Be careful when you're typing those in, and if there's any issues, just reach out to me via Google Classroom or via email. All right, kkeo@srsd.net, and hopefully I'll see you on Google Meet tomorrow. All right, pop in 10:30 to 11 a.m. Wake up early. All right, have a wonderful Wednesday, everybody.